Alright you guys, this intro has absolutely nothing to do with the video itself, but I bought a PC, you guys. That's right. We officially have bought a PC here for the channel. This will be arriving this Wednesday, and I figured I would go ahead and celebrate with all of you and let you guys know, because this is huge for the channel. This means that we are going to be able to branch out and do so many more new things here on the channel, as well as live streaming. I could not be more excited. This also means we are going to be doing more podcasts and crossovers with all of your favorite King of Fighters All-Star community members. This is going to be big for the channel. However, I do want to go ahead and point out a couple of things here before we get into today's video. This is going to require some setup on my part, as well as a lot of adjustments and pivots. So this basically means that for this week I am going to be spending a ton of time working on all of this stuff in the background. So if you guys are wondering if you don't see as fancy edits as you might usually be used to here on the channel, or you don't see certain things done the way that I would normally do them, then that is why. This is going to be a bit of a transition week here on the channel, especially once Wednesday comes and I get this in my hands, as well as the monitor I just bought. But you guys, this is exciting stuff. We have been in the market forever, but because of the inflation due to things that I'm not going to mention, it has been a bit of a mess trying to get this to happen. However, it has finally happened. We finally have a PC. This is big news for the channel. I hope you guys are as excited about this as I am. I will keep you guys abreast of the situation and let you guys know whenever I have decided what the new structure is going forward here on the channel, as far as schedule goes and as far as videos go. But this is something that I've been waiting for a very, very long time, and is going to allow for a lot of really exciting things here on the channel. But without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into the video. But we got a PC, you guys! Happy Monday, everybody! What's going on, you guys? TBR here, back yet again with another King of Fighters All-Star video. And in today's video, we are going to be starting up a new series here on the channel this week, where we are breaking down the Unified Banner color by color and giving the new players recommendations. But first, before we get into all of that and more, if you guys are new here and you enjoy daily King of Fighters All-Star content such as this, make sure you guys smash that like button and subscribe. And as I had promised you guys in last week's Q&A video, I have gotten a ton of requests from people that have been asking me to go ahead and break down the Unified Banner and give them recommendations on the characters they should be picking there, especially for all my beginners, my intermediates, and my new players out there. So that's what we're going to be doing this week. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go color by color, and I'm going to break down where these characters are useful, what they're useful for, what stands out about them, and which characters in the end you should be picking for your rate-ups, in my opinion, as a new or an intermediate player. So hopefully all of you intermediates and beginners out there find this series informative. But without further ado, this week we're going to be taking a look at all of these, starting with purple. So let's go ahead and get into it. Alright you guys, so it's important to note we aren't talking about championship at all in these considerations, so let's go ahead and jump into it. The first character that I want to talk about for the purple element is going to be Nameless. In my opinion, on the Unified Banner, there is no better, more useful purple element character currently available in the game for new or beginner or intermediate players than Nameless, and there's several different reasons as to why. When you take a look at the kit, the big things that stick out about him are going to be the fact that he does have damage immunity on his S3, he's going to be able to deal burn damage on his cores, and he is going to have a wonderful 3PG finisher. So basically with Nameless, there's a couple of different selling points with this character, the biggest one being the fact that whenever you are starting out, you are going to benefit quite a bit from characters that have really good XY axis, meaning that they can gather up and group up mobs very well with their skills and be able to wipe them off the board as quick as humanly possible, and also characters that can charge their finishers and fire those off as much as possible. That is going to help you across a ton of different modes, but in particular when it comes to Nameless, the big one that makes him very good is going to be Immortals, because he is going to be able to stop the clock in a huge way, because he is going to be able to gain that power every time he lands a crit. So with Nameless, one of the big reasons why I recommend him to any beginner is because he is still to this day one of the premier time attack characters, meaning that he is going to be be able to earn you quite a bit of rubies whenever you're able to use him in time attack. So really, you cannot understate that because of his versatility there. A lot of that has to do with the fact that he does have good XY axis, as well as having that wonderful 3PG finisher and that overall power gain on his core. But this is a character that also is going to be a nest type fighter, meaning that he is going to slot in very well to a lot of different teams. But in general, an extremely important character for new, beginner, or intermediate players, in my opinion. Nameless is the way to go for your initial rate up, and you won't be sorry. Now, it's worth noting that the drop-off in quality from Nameless to some of these other characters is pretty marked as far as use cases go, but I'll try to point out where some of these other characters are useful. So the next one I want to talk about is going to be Orochi. Now, Orochi doesn't really have a lot to talk about when it comes to his leadership ability or his typing. Neither of them are anything too special. However, he is a boss fighter and an Orochi clan member, so that is going to cause him to have a few different synergies with some different team leaders out there that you might want to use him with. But in general, when it comes to PvE content, some of the reasons why Orochi is still a relevant character is mainly going to be the fact that he can take a hit and recover his HP in a big way thanks to his cores. He's also going to be able to deal burn damage on his kit, which is very nice in general. And overall, this character is one that is going to be fairly tanky and still be able to output a decent amount of damage. He's going to have some excellent sustain, and he's also going to have a very nice long 3PG finisher that you can use with him. The problems with this character are going to be that he doesn't output a ton of damage, so he isn't necessarily going to be much of a damage dealer. He isn't going to be gaining a lot of power through any of his different cores or his skills, so he can feel a little bit slow unless he does have the right leadership behind him. But in general, Orochi is still in a pretty decent spot. He just isn't going to be anything that is going to be top tier, unfortunately. The use cases for him are pretty relegated. Mainly, he is going to be a wonderful PvAI fighter. He's also going to be really good for things just like your general mobbing, your general bossing, and so on and so forth. And really, in general, with this character, he isn't going to be anything that is super crazy, but he is going to be a character that is going to be able to get better as the fight goes on, because he is going to be able to regain power faster whenever he is low HP. But again, with that HP recovery, that doesn't tend to be too much of a problem for him because he does have some decent sustain to him. So overall, while not as good as his BS counterpart by any stretch of the imagination, this is still a solid little character, and one that I think is worth a look after you look at Nameless. But that's going to be Orochi. The next character I want to talk about is actually going to be one that's a personal favorite, and that's going to be Maxine, or Lady Maxima. So when it comes to Maxine here, this character has a really nice little typing. She's a purple attack type, so being an attack type, she's going to slot into a lot of teams very well. She's also going to be an all-star fighter with the Nests tag, so she's going to have a ton of different ways she can slot in teams. She has a mixed kit when it comes to her dots because she has lightning and burn, and she's also going to have a phenomenal leadership ability that increases Nest fighters' attack by 55%. And the way that I kind of look at this character, the way that I describe her, she's kind of like Baby's first DPS character, because this character outputs a really nice bit of damage, although keep in mind she is a bit of a glass cannon as a result of being an attack type. However, if you're somebody who's starting out and you just need somebody that's going to output a ton of damage for you and have some really nice skills, then this is a character that I think is worth noting, because she is one that I feel is very underrated. She isn't going to be anything that you're really going to use in things such as Guild Raid or Immortals or so on and so forth, but if you are somebody who is staying on top of your fame buffs and you're donating a decent amount of your stuff to her in order to build her up, like giving her some stones and building her up in general, she is going to be a character that is going to see a lot of work on your account as long as you are doing those things. So I feel like with Lady Maxima, unfortunately, she has been overlooked in a big way. She's a character that since the beginning I have always felt very strongly about. I think that she is one that can help out a lot of new players out there, but do keep in mind that she isn't necessarily going to have a ton of versatility outside of the fact that she has some wonderful little tags that are going to allow her to be able to slot into teams very well. So that's going to be Maxine. So next up, we're going to talk about characters that are going to be much more niche than some of the other ones we've already spoken about. And I suppose the next character I would like to point out to you guys is going to be Halloween Gatecrasher Chris. So Halloween Gatecrasher Chris, the reason why he's useful is because he does have darkness on his kit, but more importantly because he has darkness as his striker ability. Now this is going to be something that is going to be probably very important for beginners because you don't have a lot of top tier darkness users in the game right now outside of Epic Quest that you can pick from as far as a free-to-play player capacity is concerned. So a lot of the times what you're going to be doing is you're going to be using some really good shield shredders with a striker that has the proper dot and things such as Guild Raid. And in Guild Raid you would want that darkness striker for things such as expert difficulty against Omega Rugal. So this is actually going to make Halloween Gatecrasher Chris really useful. However, if you want to use him by himself as just a character on a team, he is going to be serviceable. However, I would say that he isn't necessarily going to be anything super special in that regard. Now, there is a case to be made for him, and he isn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. However, he is going to be better used and better utilized as a striker. But in general, this is somewhere where this character is going to shine for you on your account. So if you do end up with him, do keep that in mind. The fact that he can be used to apply darkness is very important, again, because there aren't a lot of really good free-to-play options out there, and while this character does have some okay tags, he isn't anything super special in the end, so really I would say that this is just going to be one of those characters that you could chalk up to being a niche use character, but I felt like it was worth noting that he did have that darkness striker ability, being the fact that it is very important. Now, speaking of strikers, the next character I'm going to talk about is actually going to be a little bit more versatile, but still has a wonderful striker ability, so she can be used in both ways. But that is, of course, going to be Lovely Kula. So Lovely Kula does have some pretty good little tags. She's going to be a Nest fighter and an All-Star fighter, so you can go ahead and slot her into some pretty interesting team comps. Her typing and leadership ability leave a lot to be desired, but really the selling point with Kula is of course going to be the fact that she can deal chill damage as a striker. Now, this is going to be extremely important against Spider Robot down the road. However, do note if you are a beginner or an intermediate that Spider Robot is extremely endgame content for everyone, so you're probably not going to have a lot of luck there. However, down the road, whenever you do go to try and attempt that, you are probably going to be wanting Lovely Kula as a striker because of that chill damage she can apply as a striker. But in general, she is also going to be a really good character in her own right. Ice Coffin is still to this day low-key one of the best overall skills in the game, and in general, as a chill-based unit, she's going to be one of the best free-to-play alternatives out there, and I highly recommend her for that. But chill, unfortunately, just doesn't have a ton of use cases in the game right now, so take that as you will. But that is going to be Lovely Kula, still a really strong, solid character. And speaking of chill strikers, this is a character that is more than likely just going to be a chill striker for your account. However, another premier Spider Robot striker is going to be Hotaru. So if you end up getting Hotaru, keep in mind, while she isn't necessarily going to have a lot of versatility, you aren't going to really be able to use her as well as you would be with Idol Kula as far as just general PvE content. She's still a solid little character, but more than likely a character that you're just going to find yourself using as a striker and not much more than that. Now, the final character that I want to talk about as far as the purple element is concerned, is kind of an honorable mention, is going to be the boss himself, Ignis. So with Ignis, he's kind of interesting, but basically with this character, he does have some really nice tags as an attack type boss fighter and a Nest fighter. So basically he is going to slot into a decent amount of teams for you as a free-to-play player with a limited roster. However, another big note about him that makes him really good is the fact that he outputs a ridiculous amount of damage for a free-to-play option. This is also a character that has recently gotten buffed, so that is something else that works to his benefit, being the fact that he does have a reworked kit. He's a little bit more up to date than some of these other characters that have not seen buffs, but when you take a look at him, really the big selling point with this character is you are getting a glass cannon that's going to be able to output a lot of damage, but little else. He does have light lightning on his kit, but that isn't really anything that ever comes up very often. And in general, when you take a look at things such as his cores and so on and so forth, his cores are pretty decent as well, because you're going to see that he does have that stackable increase to his attack and his penetration. But in general, this is a character that I feel like if you end up with, you will enjoy him at the beginning. However, the more you play with him, you realize that there aren't a lot of use cases for him the longer you get into the game. And really, when it comes to his finishers, they leave a lot to be desired, because for new players, you aren't really going to have access to the Boss Syndrome 3PG finisher that this character got with that banner, so that's off the table. And then when you consider the fact that his other 3PG finisher is going to be locked behind Epic Quest, where you are probably never going to be able to get to it by the time this character would be useful to you. By the time you get to that card, this character is going to be almost useless at that point for you. So really, you don't have a lot of good options there. I think if you're just going for a designated DPS character on the Unified Banner for purple as a color, then probably my opinion on that is Maxine is better in my opinion, just because I prefer her overall kit and her animations. But then again, if you just need a damage dealer, the next best option, or arguably the best option from there, would be Ignis as a glass cannon option. But really, at the end of the day, this character, like I said, does not have a whole lot of versatility. He doesn't have a lot of use cases, so really you could kind of put him up in that kind of middle tier when it comes to these purple element characters. He's very strong for damage, but little else, so I don't feel like this is a character that you necessarily need to go out of your way to pick up. I just figured I would point that out because I do get the feeling that, being the fact that it is Ignis, a lot of people may look at him and immediately be kind of attracted to him, but I do feel it important to note that he doesn't have a ton of use cases. And then when we get to these other characters, there's an argument to be made for a few of them. So for instance, Baseball Vanessa. Baseball Vanessa is really good for Championship. She's still a solid character for PvAI and things of that nature, but really in general, when it comes to just general PvE, she doesn't have a lot of use cases, so I wouldn't be going out of my way to pick her up. And then when you take a look at the other two characters that we haven't talked about here in this video, like Lady Kim has virtually no uses in PvE. And then when it comes to Vice really just doesn't have a whole lot going on for her either. She's a solid character, but you're really not going to use her for much. But that is pretty much going to be it for the purple element, you guys. I hope that this was informative to all of my beginners, intermediates, and new players out there. If you are looking for a great character for your initial rate up for your purple element, my recommendation to you guys is to go with Nameless. You are going to get the most work out of these characters from him, because he is going to be able to get you through things such as Immortals and so on and so forth, and be able to slot into a lot of different team comps there to help you out. But from there, if you want to take a look at a character like Orochi, maybe Maxine, maybe Halloween Gatecrasher Chris, those are the characters in PvE that I would flock to. But there's definitely a case to be made for lovely Kula as well in that group. So really, those are the characters I recommend, but Nameless is at the top. But that is going to be today's video, you guys. I hope you found it informative. I'll be back tomorrow with the next installment in this series. If you did enjoy it, make sure that you guys smash that like button and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. You all take care. Peace.